everybody. Today I have with me Helen Azar, and look at her new book. Yay! And we're in person, and I'm so happy to meet her. This is going to be so much fun. I love, everybody who knows me knows how much I love the Romanovs, and I love talking about them. And it's not like I'm an expert about it, but I've watched enough documentaries and read enough books. And I was reading, you had a diary of Maria.
I had Olga, Tatiana. I had Olga 1913, which is the same year as this one. And then I had Olga, those diaries and letters of the war years. And then Tatiana was a companion to the Olga one, which was the same. It covered the same year, some 1913 also. And now it's Maria. Next year we're planning on publishing Maria again. Which will cover the war years as a companion to Olga and Tatiana. Anastasia doesn't have any diaries that survived.
This is the one that I was
reading. Yes. So that
everybody can see.
Yeah. There won't be a lot of overlap. There'll be some overlap with this one. At the time when I published this one, there wasn't anything else available for Maria.
Right.
Last December, I went to the Russian archives, and I got just a ton of stuff on Maria and Anastasia. So we'll.
I love how you say that.
Anastasia. Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, Anastasia is the.
It's like the English.
Is the anglicized. Yeah, it's in Russian. It's Anastasia.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I try to use that.
And I tried to think about when I was driving here. I was thinking like. Everybody is consumed, especially we're coming up on the 100 year next year, and I feel like so all the historians are really hyping up for it. But what is it about the Romanovs that we just love? As history. I mean, as it goes on, we don't lose interest in the Romanovs.
I think it's a few things. I think the fact that they were a beautiful family. I mean, you look at the pictures of these girls, and they're just gorgeous. It's the fact that they took so many photographs.
Right.
It's the fact that the tragedy of how they died.
Right.
It's a combination of all these things,
and some of the unknowns.
And then there's like stuff like Rasputin. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Rasputin, and it's just such an interesting. That's why I can never understand when people write fiction about them, that they make things up. When the truth is the actual nonfiction is so much more interesting than
anything
things, than things they make up.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. That's what I was just telling some guy that today that wrote history. I'm like, history's so interesting to me because people spend so much time making stuff up for fiction, but you really just don't have to.
All they have to do is just take the real history and then fictionalize it.
Exactly. So for people who don't know a lot about the Romanovs, I'm always assuming that my audience knows what I do. Just like a brief overview of who they were, because it was also the fact that the royalty, with the countries and
they were all related.
They were all related.
Yeah, Nicholas was Nicholas II was the nephew of the Queen of England, Queen Alexandra, and his Alexandra was the niece of her husband. Right. So King Edward and the cousin of George, the Fifth, and they were both cousins on different sides of George the Fifth, and of course he was the last Tsar of Russia. They had Rasputin got involved. I think Rasputin might be even more famous than the imperial family, but he got involved because they had their one and only heir, and Alexei had hemophilia, and Rasputin was able to
help him
somehow control it like no one else could. And of course, the revolution and the execution and all that went along with it.
Right.
So I think that
that's like
most people are
familiar,
have at least heard of Rasputin or the Last Tsar or something like that. So.
And I was really happy that in the PBS, well, actually no, I guess it was on British TV when they did Victoria.
Yes.
And they did Queen Victoria, and they went into the fact that Nicola, he was there, courting her, And of course, they wouldn't. His dad wouldn't allow him.
Yeah, he was. Well, that was the first Nicholas the
Nicholas.
First,
Yeah, that was
right? So that was his ancestor.
Right.
So he was his great. Let's see, Alexander. He was his great grandfather. So again,
Like,
this is
yeah,
and then
right.
Alexandra, of course, Nicholas's wife, Nicholas II's wife, was her granddaughter.
Yes.
So
Right.
you know, so it's kind of interesting the way
The,
that
the
worked
family
out.
tree is interesting.
Yes, yes. And I think Victoria herself, she did not like Russia. She did not want
Be a part of
Alex, her granddaughter, to marry into Russia because her other granddaughter, Ella, Alexandra's sister, was already married to a Grand Duke who was Nicholas's uncle. So again, there's that family connection. But she did not. It's almost like she felt some kind of a premonition or something that she did not. She was so against it, but in the end, you know,
Right.
Alexandra did it. So.
And I think one of the things that I always think about, and other people do from things I've read, is that, you know, what was the world doing about it? You know, when once everybody kind of found out. But I saw something really interesting on a documentary that I hadn't seen, which is weird because I thought I saw them all on YouTube, and they said that King George actually did want to help them, but then he couldn't because she was German, and at the time,
there was a lot of
you know.
Anti-Russian Tsar.
Right.
I mean, first of all, the Labor Party did not like, you know, the fact that he was an autocrat, and I think that was more of an issue than her being German. And that I think that played a role too, because she was suspected in Russia. She was suspected of being a German spy. And her brother was suspected of doing something or other. It later proved to be untrue. But so I think George did want to do something, but the prime minister, the people, the parties, they were totally against him. Of course, they didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
At the time, it was still a provisional government. They outlawed death sentence, so they weren't going to be executed. They thought they'll just send them to somewhere, you know, maybe Denmark or somewhere.
Right.
But they didn't. The last thing in their mind was that they'll get executed, which happened later, but it was too late at that time.
Right.
So.
Because you think of it, I mean, they don't have the kind of communication, you know, things that were
they
happening.
Didn't have internet.
You know,
exactly.
You know, it's like, why wasn't the world taking care of them? It's like,
and nobody even expected the Bolsheviks to take over.
Right.
Even the Bolsheviks themselves were surprised, I think. So it all sort of happened, and then at the last minute they decided to kill them.
Right.
And that was that.
So you were telling me like that you know how to translate Russian, like you really know
yes,
how.
And I can. I'm probably one of the very few people who writes in English, who can read actual script, like Russian script, the writing. So this is Maria's. This is a scan of her diary, January 1st.
Wow.
And most people cannot have a really hard time reading it. And I think that this is why I'm pretty much the only one who's doing the diaries.
Because I've never seen, out of everything I've read on them, I have never seen the diaries.
Yeah, there are excerpts that have been published in Russian that some people translate.
Right.
But I have, this is the full, I have the full diaries that I transliterate and then translate. And when I started out, the first one I did was Olga, and her handwriting was even harder than this. And it took me a while to.
Is their Russian like the same as Russian today, or has it changed?
Yes,
it is the same.
It's the same.
Okay.
The spelling is slightly different. There's a couple of letters that no longer exist, but they're kind of silent.
Right.
But yeah, it's very modern. I was surprised at how modern. Yeah, definitely.
And they have so. I only because I've read your book, and here you had said that a lot of them had gotten burned too. There was only certain amounts left.
Yes, and I think Anastasia burnt all her diaries, destroyed them, burnt, or I'm assuming they were burnt. Maria burnt most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Up until recently, for some reason, everybody thought, including me, because that's what everybody was saying, that the only one that survived was 1916.
Right.
However, when I went to I did a little research and on the at the archives, and I
Right.
found 1913, and there's also 1912, and I think there might be one more, but definitely 1912, 1913, and 1916.
Wow.
And the rest she destroyed. And the two older sisters,
Yeah.
for some reason, they did not destroy. I think they may have destroyed like one of theirs, and the rest survived. I have a feeling they were packed away, and the ones for the two younger ones, I think they also were packed away, and the other ones for some reason were available, so they destroyed
It's
them.
actually unbelievable that they were available
Yeah,
after everything that went through.
I think they packed them somewhere with their stuff when they knew they were
when they left.
When they were leaving, and somehow it was put away, so they survived, and the other ones they have with them maybe.
I was thinking when we were talking about them, I was like, okay, what were the ages when they died?
So Anastasia was 17.
Okay.
Maria was 19.
Mm-hmm.
Tatiana was 20. I believe she was 20 and a half. And Olga was 22.
Ugh.
Or Tatiana may have been 21, and Olga was 22. Yeah.
And then Alexei was...
Oh, he was 14.
14.
Yeah. So.
I think it's part of that, too. It's like, it was so tragic. Like, to wipe out
and
a whole family.
They were completely innocent. They have, and there's so, like, it's one thing to know and to read about them. It's another thing to read their letters, their diaries. And I mean, I found myself, especially when I first started doing this, I can't believe they killed them. I can't believe they were just such nice girls.
Like they didn't do anything.
No, they didn't do anything, and they were very, very, like, you can tell that they were very nice, kind, sweet girls.
Compassionate.
Yes.
Compassionate.
Yes.
They wanted to help.
Yes.
They weren't for everything that they had.
It's just so terrible. It's so tragic.
Right.
And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think that is the because it was so cold-blooded in a way,
Yeah.
like the way
very,
it was
very,
done.
like just very, almost, they didn't see them as people. But I think that might have been the only way that they could have done it. Unless it was just, like, I don't think they were all like psychopaths or anything.
Right.
I think they just sort of had a cause, and they didn't see them as people, and it was for the greater cause in their mind, and that's what they had to do.
Right.
So I think that's what happened.
And it just seemed like, their parents were just such good people too.
They were.
Though he was like,
right.
It's almost
right.
like in that time, people expected, they were starving. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
People expected the monarchs, even in England and even, all over. It's like when people are starving, French, they expect them to fix it. And it's like sometimes because of lack of, they just didn't know exactly. And I think he was one of those. Like, I don't know.
That's the thing. He was an autocrat. So he was held responsible for everything.
Right.
Ultimately.
Right.
In England, it was a constitutional monarchy. It was a little different. They had a prime minister. They had, here, he did have, in 1905, he set up the Duma, which is kind of like a parliament, but then he dissolved it. So in a way, ultimately, he was responsible, even though he meant well, but in the end, he was held responsible. Right. So if anything, if they're going to hold anyone responsible, it would have to be him.
Right.
He was misled. He didn't know a lot. He was misled a lot of the time. I mean, in a way, it's impossible for one person to do all this.
Exactly.
But, in his mind, he had to, because he was anointed by God and the whole thing. So, so it was like a no-win situation, honestly.
Right. Well, I wanted to show everybody the cover of this, because that's so beautiful. It's the first time anybody's seeing it. So,
well, the cover, I've shared the cover on social media.
Okay.
But no one's read the book.
No one's read.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so
beautiful, and there's so many pictures in
here.
A lot of pictures. And they were so good about taking. They had a camera. They took pictures of the girls.
Yes, constantly.
If they hadn't, we wouldn't know them.
We
like,
wouldn't, right?
We
And I
wouldn't
think
feel like we
that's,
knew
yeah,
them as
and that's
well.
part of it. I think
Yeah.
that's part of it.
Right.
Where they had a lot of official pictures, but then they were amateur photographers, so
Right.
they took pictures sort of like what we do now with our
phones.
smartphones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they would have fit right in.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And I don't know that people in this era were taking as many pictures. It just seems like they have a lot of pictures.
Yes, yes.
You know?
And I think, yeah, that'd be on Instagram, I think.
Those girls were crazy about pictures.
Yeah,
But,
they even took selfies
they took-
and
right.
in the mirror. And I mean, yeah, it's funny. It's surprisingly, it was 100 years ago, over 100 years
Right.
ago, and they're so surprisingly modern.
Yeah. It's
that-
almost like they wanted us to know them. You know?
Right, right.
It's in a weird way. doesn't
In a
it,
weird
too?
way, right?
Yeah, like they wanted us to
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I don't think they were consciously
No,
thinking
not
that
consciously,
way, but
you
it's
know.
almost, yeah, it almost feels that way.
Yeah. Well, they were kind of secluded, too, and the pictures were a way of, like, here I am. Because,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
they weren't as secluded as people like to make
them?
them out to be,
Okay.
because when you read the diaries they had a very wide social. I mean, obviously they weren't walking around the streets,
Right.
but as far as having acquaintances and even friends, they had a very, very busy social life,
Oh,
even during the war, even before the war, and you know, towards the end of you know, until they got arrested. At that
Right.
point, they were secluded. But before that, I really think it's a myth that
They
they
were
were that isolated. They really weren't. I was surprised. I was reading. There was always like a new person almost every day.
Oh, that's
They were
good,
having
because I
tea
always
with and-
pictured them very...
Yeah, because I think that's how a lot of historians. I don't know where it originated, but for years it's been sort of people. The authors were repeating
Right.
that same myth. It's like they were isolated, they were secluded, and then when I started reading their own diaries, their own letter, they would mention all these people that I don't even know how they kept track of what you know.
Interesting.
So it's, to me, they had better social lives than anybody I know.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So so after you're done doing the diaries, what do you see yourself doing with these? Because...
Well, there is so much in the archives. I mean, I was able to get thousands of pages when I was
Wow.
there, and there's still so much more. I was only there for a week, and they limit you every day. Like, you can only request a certain amount. So I was doing that, but I would probably need like a year to live in Moscow and to really get.
So do you want to go back?
I do. I mean, if I could afford to, I would. I'm hoping to go. We're doing a tour, like in the steps of the Romanovs tour next year,
cool.
In July of 2018, which I'm going to be like leading the tour, and we'll sort of follow in their steps through the diaries, through the letters, and so it's St. Petersburg, you know, Tsarskoe Selo. Then we'll go to Tobolsk and Ekaterinburg and even Alapayevsk, where
Wow.
yeah. So
I hope that gets filmed.
yeah, I'm hoping to.
Yeah.
Right now they're still sort of taking reservations. Hopefully, we'll get enough people to make this happen. And right now, I think next week is the deadline.
Jeez, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And later I can give you the tour description.
Yeah.
I didn't even think to bring it.
That's
but,
okay. We can put it up
but
there
yeah,
for everybody
yeah.
to see.
Yeah,
So.
hey, why not? You know?
Right, exactly.
I think this is something that's a once in a lifetime chance,
Oh,
really, because it's
absolutely.
you get to be there during the actual anniversary,
Right.
and just see it. It's gonna be big.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they have like the government meeting or you know.
I know. I hear a lot of buzz about it. I mean, everybody's
Yes.
kind of gearing up
Yes,
for the,
yes,
for
and
this
a
100
lot
year.
of hotels are already like all booked out
Wow.
a year in advance.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be
so
big.
it's going to be huge. I
Huge
think.
in Russian history and
Right.
Yeah.
I think even world history. I think
yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I mean, in the country
because
itself.
I think the English royal, like some of the other royal
Yes.
families, are invited, and so it should be interesting.
Oh, that's going to be exciting. That's awesome. Well, anyway, this is Helen Azar, and I want to show her book one more time. It's going to be out there very soon for everybody.
And then I just want to and I want to mention Amanda Madru. She's a young writer who helped me a lot on the book. She wrote the introduction. She did the editing. She did some of the footnotes, and so she's my co-author, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So and she's Maria's her favorite Grand Duchess, so she was very happy about that.
Awesome. Well, we will have all of Helen's links at the bottom of this video, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye.